Today is June 17th. It's the 168th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. Shortly after midnight on this day in 1972, 24-year-old security guard Frank Wills is making the rounds on his overnight shift at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C., when he finds a door in the basement garage that has a piece of tape on it, put on there in a way to prevent the door from locking. Wills pulls the piece of tape off and continues on his rounds. When he passes by the door again later, there's another piece of tape on it. Wills calls the police. The Watergate Hotel and Office Building in Washington was once just a luxurious hotel and some office space in the Foggy Bottom neighborhood of D.C., next door to the Kennedy Center and close to the State Department. That is until this day in 1972, when the offices of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, which occupies the entire 6th floor, are broken into by 5 men wearing surgical gloves and carrying with them lockpicks, door jimmies, and thousands of dollars in cash. Oh, and 2 sophisticated listening devices. From this day on, the name Watergate, and simply the suffix gate, becomes synonymous with political scandals and cover-ups. Dirty tricks are nothing new in politics, and they certainly aren't new in 1972. Usually, campaign dirty tricks consist of a lot of mudslinging and slander, like when Martin Van Buren is accused of wearing women's corsets by supporters of his opponent, or when rumors are spread about James Buchanan, who is afflicted with a congenital condition that makes his head tilt to the left. Rumors that the tilt is because he once tried to hang himself. Or like when the New York Times comes out in support of William McKinley by running a series of articles in which noted psychologists discuss whether or not his opponent, William Jennings Bryan, is crazy. Sometimes the tricks are more robust, like when John F. Kennedy runs for Congress in 1946, and his father, Joe Kennedy Sr., pays a man named Joseph Russo to run against JFK in the primary, in order to siphon off votes from Kennedy's real opposition, who also happens to be named Joseph Russo. Or Lyndon Johnson's 5 O'Clock Club, a team of political operatives tasked with destroying Johnson's opponent, Barry Goldwater. The 5 O'Clock Club feeds hostile questions to the press pack covering the Goldwater campaign. They publish a children's coloring book in which kids can color pictures of Goldwater dressed in Klan robes. And they infiltrate Goldwater's headquarters to steal advance copies of his speeches. Historian Joseph Cummins says of the 1964 presidential campaign, quote, "This was perhaps the last election in which the media could be so easily manipulated. Had there been a Bob Woodward and a Carl Bernstein in 1964, Johnson could very well have been impeached. As it is, he beats Goldwater by the 3rd highest popular vote margin in history." In 1964, Bob Woodward is still in college, and Carl Bernstein works for the Washington Star, but the Star won't let him write for the paper. He dropped out of college. But by 1972, both Woodward and Bernstein are young reporters working at the Washington Post. This is not the first break-in at the Watergate complex. The first break-in happens in 1969, when a secretary named Rose Mary Woods has jewelry and some other personal items stolen from her apartment in one of the other Watergate complex buildings. And this isn't the first break-in at the DNC. The first break-in happens about 3 weeks earlier on May 28th. That's when the burglars wiretap 2 phones in the office. They set up a listening post in a nearby hotel room and start gathering intelligence. But after a few weeks, the listening devices are a little buggy, pun intended, and they need to be repaired. So the burglars mount a second break-in to fix the bugs. It is during this second break-in that they are discovered by security guard Frank Wills. 3 plainclothes police officers arrive and begin searching the stairwell behind the taped door in the garage. At every floor, the doors have been taped, and on the 6th floor, the door has been jimmied. The door that opens into the DNC suite of offices. With guns drawn, they begin searching the 6th floor. When they enter the office of the deputy party chairman, a man jumps out from behind a desk and says, "Don't shoot." The burglars are arrested at 2:30 in the morning on this day in 1972. One of the men is James McCord, a former FBI and CIA agent and security coordinator for the RNC, the Republican National Committee. Arrested with McCord are 4 men from Miami, a locksmith named Virgilio Gonzalez, a realtor named Bernard Barker, and 2 of Barker's associates, Frank Sturgis and Eugenio Martinez. All 5 men are charged with attempted burglary and attempted interception of telephone communications. Later in the summer, they will be indicted along with G. Gordon Liddy, former White House staffer and counsel for the Committee to Re-elect the President, and E. Howard Hunt, a former White House consultant and retired CIA agent. But on this day, it's just the 5 burglars who are arraigned at 4 in the afternoon. They are all anyone knows about at this point. However, by the time they have been arraigned, the FBI and Secret Service are already investigating, and the press has caught wind of the burglary that appears to have been, as Assistant U.S. Attorney Earl Silbert puts it, committed for a clandestine purpose. The first Washington Post story about the Watergate break-in on this day in 1972 is published the following day, written by Alfred Lewis. The Post will give the story daily coverage for some time to come, with Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein relentlessly pursuing the story all the way to the office of the president, to the president himself, to the secret tapes Nixon makes of his meetings in the Oval Office, to the mysterious 18.5 minutes that are accidentally erased from one of the tapes by Nixon's personal secretary, Rose Mary Woods, to the Senate hearings, to the Saturday Night Massacre, to the resignation of President Richard Nixon. The Watergate scandal changes politics forever. It changes the press and how they cover politics, no longer maintaining a collegial relationship with those they report on, but taking a more aggressive and adversarial position, every new journalist aspiring to be the next Woodward or Bernstein, looking for scandal and corruption behind every door. It changes Americans forever, who once had a measure of confidence in their institutions and leaders, but after Watergate, lose a measure of faith in their government and no longer trust their elected officials, who they see as corrupted by power with a lack of accountability. All because of a piece of tape discovered on a door in a parking garage on this day in 1972. And yes, Nixon's Secretary Rose Mary Woods, the one who erases the tape, is the same Rose Mary Woods who has her jewelry stolen back in 1969 in that very first Watergate burglary. There are 197 days left in the year.